We're learning Chassidus about the way to self-mastery. It's interesting. As human beings, we would think that the way to become a better person is one step at a time. To become a better person, you start one foot in front of the other. In fact, the Torah tells us in Psalms of David, it's Psalms 15, Miyale behar Hashem, who will climb the mountain of God. Your spiritual journey is compared to a mountain climb. So, one foot in front of the other, you got to prepare, you got to get dressed, you got to do what you have to do to get ready for the occasion, for the experience. You can't just jump in. Yet, Chassidus, which is the secrets of Torah, it's the mystical component of Torah. Chassidus enlightens our path, illuminates our eyes to help us appreciate and understand how it is that we, human beings, were created. And when we understand how it is that we were created, we will then be able to use the user's manual to be able to figure out how to become a better person. Now, on a very practical level, what this means is, if your wife is telling you that you're a...
I got that this morning.
You got that this morning?
It's good, yeah.
So, if your wife tells you that you're not a nice person, right? If you feel maybe that you're not a nice person, I want to ask you a question. If you had to give your relationship, if you had to give yourself a rating right now, if you had to give yourself a rating, 0 being the lowest, no lower than 0, right? 0 to 10 in terms of your relationship with your children. What kind of parent are you if you have children? If you have children, what kind of parent are you? I want to ask you, you don't have to answer the question aloud. Just give yourself a number, 0 to 10. Okay. Now, I'd like to ask you another question. What kind of result would you, of mark would you give yourself in terms of your relationship with God? 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Give yourself a mark. Are you an A, a B minus, an F minus? I don't know if that happens, but you have a passing grade. Do you have? Just think about it. I guess we can answer this one aloud. Anybody want to give an answer to this one?
How can you have a relationship?
Oh.
God,
how can you have a relationship with God?
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah. Just don't define your relationship.
Is God real?
Do I think God's real?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
So God is real. So God exists. God is real. What?
He's not grading you.
What?
God is not grading you.
I didn't ask you if God is grading you. I asked you to grade yourself.
We're going to grade ourselves.
I asked you to. I'm not God. You know that, right?
Really?
There was a kid here in the show one day. He came over to me once. Little kid. He's like 5 years old. Are you God? I'm like, no. And his mother tells me that she always tells her son that God is, I think God is in charge of everything. So he came here and he saw who's in charge of everything. He was like, the rabbi's in charge of everything. Said, are you God? It's interesting, right? So no, just to answer your question, Bob. How can you have a relationship with God? You don't have to be a human being in order to have a relationship.
Now you qualify.
No, in other words, you don't only have relationships with human beings. Do you have a relationship with your work? Do you have a relationship with your work? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Of course.
Of course you do. So there you go. So if you can have a relationship with your work, when you worked, obviously, do you have a relationship with a game of golf? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Oh, so why can't you have a relationship with God?
Golf is more important.
He plays golf.
I feel personally.
Of course, personally. How else?
God is the moment of conception, creation of yourself, of your family, of your children. But from there, it's really up to you.
Okay, so I'd like to respectfully disagree with you, because my interpretation of what you're saying is that God is great, but God is responsible for the great parts of our lives, but God is not personal. That's my understanding of what you just said. And per that understanding of what you just said, I'd like to disagree, because I believe that the great revolution of Chassidus was to take an infinite God and make him personal. And I think that that's part of our spiritual journey is asking this exact question and grappling through the answer, because it's not the easy answer. Chuck is struggling with exactly the same thing when he decided to take upon himself the challenge of learning the whole Tanya. And he's going through it. And it's not easy for Chuck, but he's doing it. And he's giving me regular reports. Love it. And when I said to Chuck, I asked him a question. Do you have an emotional relationship with God? I'll ask you all, do you have an emotional relationship with God? You know, Reb Meir over here on my left, on the linker side, I asked him yesterday how he felt about Yiddishkeit, and the guy broke down in tears. He became emotional. This is beautiful. This is an unbelievable experience. When was the last time you broke down in tears ever? What was the last? I'm going to ask you this question. What was the last time that you cried, and what was it about?
Yesterday.
Oh, okay, funeral. Okay, so that means you have a relationship with your uncle that you buried. Very good. So that means you have a relationship with your uncle, the one that you buried. Very nice. Good. Anybody else? When was the last time you cried, Warren? Are you at liberty to share?
Granddaughter. Often.
Your granddaughter. Okay, so you have a relationship with your granddaughter. Very good. Has anybody here?
Not physical.
Of course, it's not physical.
It's emotional.
I know.
It's a relationship with your granddaughter. It's
But even when
an emotional relationship.
But even when there in her presence.
You have a relationship with a human being. That's fine. We get that. That makes a lot of sense. There's nothing unusual about that. But if you ever cried about a relationship that is not human, and I'm not talking about when you missed your golf swing, Bob.
Yes.
Do you cry over golf? No? Do you know people that cry over golf?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
I heard yell.
You know, I think you really get to know someone when you play golf with them.
More than 4.
What?
Something 5.
Only a game.
I thought it was amazing when Mary yesterday became emotional over his relationship with God. I thought that was beautiful.
Really?
Yeah. Why, are you surprised?
No.
So why do you say really?
No, I think it's nice to hear. So I said, really?
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah, that happened. Yeah, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Really?
Forgive me. Good.
But-
So I challenge you guys, and I want to tell you something. We learned before, you know, and I want to tell you something else. We learned before this class, we learned that there's a biblical commandment to love your fellow Jew. Do you know that there's a biblical commandment to love God? Did you know that? Ve'ahavta et Hashem elekecha, and you shall love God, your God. Right? It's a biblical commandment to have an emotional relationship with Hashem. You know what else? It's a biblical commandment to have a respectful relationship with God. Et Hashem elokecha tira, and you shall respect God, your God. Now, we respect our fathers, hopefully our mothers as well. We love our fathers, we love our mothers and hopefully our fathers as well. Right? Right? We're called to do exactly the same thing with God.
So are you saying we have both a paternal and maternal relationship with God?
I didn't say that, but that is potentially true as well. Yeah.
Let me.
One second, let me just finish my point over here.
Bob made a
Oh,
comment.
so Michael said that when his dog died, he cried. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You also did?
I absolutely did.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's interesting.
I both did.
You know, I remember the first time I discovered that somebody cried over a horse that died in South Africa. I was a little baffled. I was a kid. I was about 13, 12 years old. And I remember one of my friends was crying over a horse, and I'm like, it's just a horse. And then I realized that it's not just a horse. People develop relationships, right? It's a beautiful thing. And Michael, it's great to have you with us.
I
What?
once cried over a horse that died. He was in the lead by 6
I
lengths.
knew it was coming.
Died.
I knew what was coming.
So did I.
Okay, so where I'm going with this, folks, where I'm going with this on a very practical level. On a very practical level, we have to develop a relationship with God. You know who's really good at this? You know who's really good at this stuff is the Christians. Christians.
Oh, yeah.
You know, our cousins, the Christians, right? They are incredibly emotional about their relationship with God. You know, they wear it on their sleeve, loud and proud. They speak about their faith all the time. As Jews, like, you stand outside of a church and you ask on Sunday morning, people walk out of the church, do you believe in God? What are they going to tell you?
Of course. Yeah. What am I doing here?
What else do you think I'm doing here? Right? You stand outside of a Shul on Yom Kippur and you ask the Jew walking out of Shul on Yom Kippur, do you believe in God? Do you know what I ate for breakfast this morning?
Oh, God.
What's going on over here, guys? Seriously, what's going on over here? What's going on? We Jews struggle to nurture a personal relationship with God, and it's not cool. It's not cool. If you're conscious, if you're aware, if you're alive, then you should have a relationship with God, right? You have a relationship with golf, and with your dog, and with your horse, and with your family members, and with your workplace. Anything that's real to you, you have a relationship with. So when it comes to God, you also have to have a relationship. Now, when it comes to your grading your relationship with God, you might score at a 2 out of 10, right? Maybe you don't even know what you don't even know. So you give yourself a good score when really your score is, you're out down in the basement, but you think you're doing so great because you're so clueless, you don't even know, right? But if you're part of this group where we're all part of on a journey of consciousness, so here you are, and you're thinking to myself, okay, so what am I going to do to become a better Jew? How am I going to do this? I didn't go to Hebrew school. My parents couldn't afford it. Or maybe I converted and I wasn't there. Or maybe I'm in the process of converting. Or maybe my mother was an atheist, and my mother would make fun of God. And maybe maybe we grew up in such an environment where we were traumatized by 2,000 years of Jewish persecution, and my parents were just so grateful to have a house in the suburbs that they just made no emphasis on Judaism. And I'm 64 years old, 74 years old, and I'm trying to start my relationship with God, and I don't know where to start. That's what we're learning today. That's what this discourse, this Chassidus is all about. Your path to self-mastery, you want to become a better person, you want to improve your relationship with God, it starts from the outside in, not from the inside out. This is not a step-by-step process. This is not one foot in front of the other. This is not like a mountain climb. The way that we do this is what Chassidus is explaining today in this discourse. I think we're on part 5 of this discourse. And if you have not watched the earlier parts of this discourse, then I'm going to ask Winston from Indonesia to please post the link to the playlist right here so you can see that all of our YouTube videos are actually posted in playlists so that you can watch them in sequence. And hopefully very soon they're going to be on Spotify. So you can listen to them if you're driving in the car, because it's way too dangerous to watch the rabbi and drive. So you can listen to them while you're walking, while you're running. Very, very important to understand in this playlist. And these ideas are being developed because deep ideas need to be developed at time. And you don't have to watch these videos live. You can watch them later when you're able to. So what I was trying to say is that the Chassidus up here is explaining that the way to become a better person starts with your external actions and your words and your thoughts. That's all you need to worry about. TSA. TSA's thought, speech, and action. There's nothing else that you need to worry about. Thought, speech, and action are explained in Kabbalah. They are the garments, the clothing, the wardrobe of our soul. Just like we worry about the clothing of our bodies, it's time for us now, as we rise to higher consciousness, we're older, we're wiser, we're more mature, to learn about our soul and how to dress up our soul. We're right before Purim, which is the festival of masquerading. It's a festival of clothing. This is a very important idea. And when you see people dress up, you can always tell something about them. They tend to dress up according to what they want to be. You learn about people a lot when you watch them dress up. Watch kids playing with dress up. It's very interesting what they choose to dress up as, right? Now, when you dress in the morning, you dress for what you're going to do that day. Am I going to the beach? Am I going to the boardroom? Am I going to impress a golden goose potential client? Am I on vacation today? You dress according to what you're doing. So how do you dress your soul is the big question. How did you dress your soul this morning? Sorry for looking at you. But think about that a second, guys. How do you dress your soul in the morning? We're so worried about the wardrobe of our bodies, but how much thought have you put into the wardrobe of your soul? Do you say every word that just comes to your mind? Oh, that's a beautiful way to start. Let me ask you a question. Do you say every word that just comes to mind? You know people like this?
No.
I
I know many people like this. Any word that just rises into anywhere in their minds, just it's like a slingshot. It goes. Thank you, Winston, for posting the playlist. Much appreciated. There are people like this. They have no filter. Some politicians also. They have no filter, no names. It's not a political thing. So there are people that speak with no filter. They just talk. And it's very, very damaging to relationships.
It's very annoying.
It's very annoying. It's very damaging. The question is, how annoying are you? I want to ask you a question. How well dressed is your soul? You know, at the funeral yesterday, I was marveling at how well dressed the son was. He looked like really good, you know. And you wonder, how well dressed is your soul? So you're dressed for success when it comes to your body, but your soul, is it looking like a tramp? Is it looking like a pauper? Or are you dressed like $1 million with your soul? What is clothing of your soul? Your thoughts, your speech, and your action. You get out of bed in the morning and you say, Modeh ani lefanecha, I'm grateful to you, O living and eternal King, that you have restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness, just like Warren said. If you're starting your day like that, wow, you're off. You're out of the gate running, man. That is unbelievable. And now you know the reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth? There's a reason for this. The reason is because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. Is that amazing? One thing I love to, my favorite hobby is to listen. I love to listen. You learn so much about people. So much you learn from people when you just listen to what they have to say.
That's not Jewish.
It is.
No, you speak.
Jews speak.
Don't listen.
You know, there's a
You
holiday
really
for
speak.
talking, by the way. There's actually a holiday for talking. There's a Jewish holiday called talking. You know what your holiday is? Did you know this? There's a Jewish holiday called speech. Any ideas? Pesach. What does peh mean? Anybody know what peh means?
No.
Peh means mouth. What does sach mean? Talking. Talking. Pesach means talking mouth. See, we learned something today. Talking mouth. Why is it that we're talking mouth? Why do we need a talking mouth holiday? That's only 8 days a year, by the way.
Telling a story.
We're retelling the story.
Oh, why do we have to tell the story? Isn't it the Festival of Freedom? Isn't it the Festival of Freedom?
So we don't
How
forget.
are we going to experience freedom on Pesach? Don't you want to meditate on freedom? Don't you want to think about
It's
it?
a biblical commandment.
Friends, the way to experience freedom is by talking about it. When you talk about something, you become that thing. This is what we're learning in Chassidus. When you talk about something, you're dressing your soul in that garment. And that's what you become, not only superficially, but essentially, you actually change. So when you make it your business to come to shul once a week, for example, for the kiddush or for the sermon, or when you make it your business to come to shul once a day to lay tefillin and to learn with your fellow millionaires, when you make it your business to lay tefillin once a day in your office because you can't make it to shul, when you make it your business to give charity once in a while or once a day, and when you make your business to light Shabbos candles once a week or whatever mitzvah it is that you're doing, that is dressing your soul, and it's going to change you. It's going to modify you to become the way that you dress. I'm sorry, I've been talking for a long time. What were you going to say? You were going to say something?
Oh, yeah.
He's tired now.
Sorry. If
I was going to say something. Yeah, going back long ago, Bob they asked Bob his opinion about there's a God, there's this, and he gave his opinion, his sincere opinion. And you said, I disagree.
Yeah, I did disagree. That's a Jewish concept.
Okay, that was to me judgmental. You disagree. He can think any way he wants. Period. Anyone can.
You're allowed to have your opinion, even if you're wrong.
But I think if you don't agree,
You think?
if you don't agree, it's less judgmental that you disagree.
I'm sorry.
Maybe the same.
Don't agree is better than disagree?
I think yes.
Ooh, you're getting really semantics over here. I don't know the difference of that. I'm sorry.
We're Steve.
Yeah, look, I don't really understand the difference between disagree and don't agree. I'm going to disagree with you. I'm gonna don't agree with you.
Disagree's more personal.
I think I don't agree. Okay, I got it. All right, I'm into the Hebrew semantics. I'm not into the English semantics. I don't know. I'm gonna profess ignorance to that difference. How about that? I'm gonna say I don't understand the difference between those two. Oh, he doesn't agree with you, not agreeing with me, not agreeing with him. See?
But
See what
I
just
agree
happened?
with him.
Okay, guys, let's get back on track. What were you about to say, Bob?
Switzerland today.
Nothing. Okay, good. So let me just finish this up, guys. I want to tie it all together. So it's very, very important we understand that the journey to self-mastery is from the outside in. And we have to become conscious of how we dress our bodies. In much the same way, we have to become conscious of how we dress our souls every single day. Now, dressing your body, you really do once a day. Except for my girls. I've never seen this before. But, sometimes I'm looking like, weren't you wearing something else 15 minutes ago? And then 15 minutes later, whatever. I just don't say anything anymore. But from, at least for men, you get dressed in the morning, that's it. It's done. You're out to the races. It's done, right? But when it comes to dressing your soul, it ain't that easy. Every moment, you're dressing all over again. And you have to make a decision on what it is that you're going to be thinking about. Have you thought about what you're going to think about?
Mhm.
Think about how important your thoughts are, folks. You know how many thoughts we think a day?
Metacognition, thinking about thinking.
Thinking about thinking. I love that. Good. Why did you make a fancy word? Why did they make a fancy word for thinking? Like just
Because that's what we do.
metacognition means thinking about thinking. Okay, fine. Sounds good.
Meta-
Let me ask you a question.
Metacognition.
So let me ask you a question, folks. How many thoughts do you think a day? Do you know how many thoughts you think a day?
50,000.
They say around 50,000. I don't know how this is even measurable. You know, and besides, this is definitely before January 9th, 2007. Definitely. Because January 9th, 2007, everything changed. You know what happened that day? The iPhone was born. Yes. The iPhone was born. Right. Which means that the iPhone wouldn't even be allowed to drink yet. Right. Right. So January 9th, 2007. And before then, you know, people, when they didn't have what to do, they would read a book. They would talk to each other. They would think about something. You know, today, you don't have what to do. You get into bed with your phone. And next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing, right? So I think that these days we may be under 1,000 thoughts a day, but 50,000 thoughts is the conscious human mind, right? Approximately. Again, I don't know how they calculate that. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Einstein who said, that a human being uses no more than 5% of their mental capacity, maybe 5 to 10% or 5
That
to
was Jackie Mason.
maybe 5 to
That
10%
has
of their
been-
brain
that has
capacity.
been disproved.
I don't know what I'm just quoting. Bottom line is, folks, what are your thoughts about? What are you thinking about in those 50,000 thoughts? How many of those 50,000 thoughts are conscious thoughts? And how many of those 50,000 thoughts are just random thoughts? So let's say you're walking down the street, right? Very practical, walking down the street. What if you imagine there was a video screen on top of your head that showed what you were thinking about? I saw this clip somewhere. I don't know where this thing showed up on my phone the other day. Maybe it's a movie. I don't know what it is, but this guy basically gets a pair of glasses in the mail and he puts them on. And every time he puts them on, he sees the essence of everything, like an X-ray. So he sees, let's say, some scantily clad female. And what he sees is insecure. Or he sees some guy driving a fancy car, you know? So he sees a word that says like ostentatious or deprived as a child, you know? So it's essentially like these glasses like show him characterization of what's going on beneath.
We call it rose-colored glasses.
Okay. No, it's not rose colored. It's not rose colored. It's showing him. It's showing. Yeah, it's not making things nice. It's making things essential. Imagine you had a screen that portrayed your thoughts. Your thoughts. Now, this would be very, very dangerous. But imagine there was such a thing. When you're walking down the street, what would you be seeing? Yellow car, yellow bird, tree next to yellow car with yellow bird. I mean, you're just like mindlessly walking through. But then you could be walking down the street thinking about how to become a better person through outside in, through retro engineering the human makeup. And you're like walking down the street and you're actually conscious. You're actually thinking Torah thoughts. That's an entirely different existence. Imagine you're walking down the street and you're thinking about how you can become a better husband, a better marriage, a better parent, a better boss, a better employee, how you can become more efficient, more successful, more calm, more at peace. This is conscious thinking. When you're thinking thoughts that are active, you're becoming a better person. When you're thinking thoughts that are negative, you're actually becoming a worse person. Let me just do a little piece here in the in the discourse. I'm just going to translate this little piece of here. So now the Rebbe continues. This is a discourse from 1960. It was during Sukkot of 1960 that the Rebbe said this discourse. The Rebbe says like this. I'm going to just translate from the original. That even though the impact that clothing has upon the wearer, is there a better word for wearer? Wearer of the clothing.
Probably the right word. So
even though the impact of clothing upon the wearer seems to be purely superficial, only in the eyes of the beholders, nevertheless, from the discourse of the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, we learn that clothing has an inyan amoik, a deep mystical power. Now, this is a very unusual expression in Chassidus, in Kabbalah. To say that something is an inyan amoik, normally they explain that what a deep mystical concept is. They don't really explain over here. In my book, I'm planning on explaining what this is. That's actually the essence of my next book. So what is this power of clothing? From here, it's understood, says the Rebbe, that the impact that clothing with this mystical power has upon the wearer is not merely superficial, but it's actually essentially transformative of the wearer. So if you dress, if you're a poor person and you dress like a successful entrepreneur, you'll actually transform your inside to become that mindset. I'm not saying you're going to become rich necessarily, but you're actually going to start thinking and becoming. You'll feel like a rich person, right? And the two examples that were brought over here, earlier in the series, we said that when you have a stupid person, you meet these people once in a while, right? Some people, it's not by no fault of their own. They're just thick as a brick. There's nothing they can do. They just anything you tell them, it goes. There's just nothing retains. So you have a fool, and this foolish person makes the conscious decision to speak words of wisdom. How do they do that? They say, well, I'm going to take this sermon or a message that I heard from somebody smart, and I'm going to share that with my children. I'm going to share that with my friends. So instead of going to the bar and just talking about whatever we're looking at, I'm actually going to share some wisdom with my friends. So what happens is, even though if at this time still he's still stupid, he's still a fool, and even if he's a great big fool, nevertheless, through speaking words of wisdom, remember, speech is the garment of the soul, one of three garments. This will affect. Is it E or A? Affect. This will affect. Affect with an A. This will affect. That ultimately he will actually become a very wise person. This is the teaching of Chassidus. Even a big fool will become a very wise person. See, even somebody very secular will become very religious. Even somebody very atheistic will become a big believer. Even somebody very nasty will become very kind. You can become whatever you want when you modify and are mindful of the clothing of your soul. And so too with the second example that was brought in the discourse of the Alter Rebbe that we're quoting, that this whole thing is based on. That through the narcissist or the wicked person who chooses to do acts, not speech, but acts is a different example, who chooses to do acts of kindness. So example, he's a wicked person. Let's say he's selfish, right? And he says, I am going to donate to any charity that solicits me over the next month. Let's say he decides to do that. Any solicitation we're going to get, I'm going to make a donation to. What's going to happen? Then that's going to change ultimately the wearer's essence. It's going to be transformed. And why is this? Can end with this. Why is this? The reason for this is because of the wondrous power of the wardrobe. The wondrous power of clothing, that they have the power to transform the essence and the truth of the wearer. We're not done with this. We're going to develop this theme, but this is the idea. We learned today. Any comments, rebuttals, criticisms, don't agree, disagrees, anything? We good? So folks, I'm going to leave you with a bit of homework today for the next 24 hours. I'd like you to please think about the clothing that you're wearing today. Think about the clothing that you're wearing today. And I'm not talking about the clothing of your body. I want you to stop at dinner time today and at lunchtime, twice today. Twice, at lunchtime and at dinner time today. It's only two things I want you to do today. At lunchtime and at dinner time, try to remember and ask yourself, what clothing am I wearing to this lunch? And what clothing am I wearing to this dinner? Clothing being thought, speech, and action. Have a nice day.
Yasha Koach. I think.